now we're coming back to the run game. Like here come now the running backs coming back. All this kind of like it's the evolution of football.
Yeah, and you'll start. I think the problem is just with when the run and shoot originally, the slots were right off the tackles, but then you started getting funny blitzes, especially in the high school short side.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because you're coming from that edge. They're bringing this. Sometimes they would bring a corner, roll the safety over the top.
Yeah, because it was easy to do because you could apex the corner to the short side, and it's really an outside linebacker. And I think we still see that. And against anything, people were doing that against the wing tee. They were cutting the corner. They do against triple too, and sometimes they paid a price. Bulls right over their head. But yeah. So I think the evolution is interesting. So Coach Dia kind of gave me the keys to the car. We had some pretty good players. That didn't hurt. I mean, my first full-time quarterback there was a kid named Chris Leonard. He was a junior. And we had I'm sorry, my first, 95. Yes, Chris was a junior. Was the first year I was in charge of the offense. So, I didn't become a coordinator until I was 34. I was always dabbling stuff,
Yeah, that's where I was. Same for me.
Yeah, a lot of dabbling with stuff. I was so busy with track and trying to get good at coaching positions. And I was always taking the extra things with the positions. I coached the receivers, the DBs, the quarterbacks, special teams. I could always long snap. I don't know how I learned how to long snap. My dad was a coach, and I could hold. So I knew how, and I returned punt. So I was always involved in special teams. But, you started seeing, the reality of what you had walking your hallways, which was probably more, as Mouse Dave said, a lot of pissant kids, diminutive type bodies who could run or were football players, tough, good athletes, multi-sport kids. Maybe not the fastest kids. So we were pretty fast at Glen Rock. We were pretty fast.
Yeah.
This is where I am now is like the land of slow.
Yeah.
And I can't believe people are this slow. It's just like there's something in the water. It's slow.
Has it always been slow, or have you seen it get slower?
At Riverdale?
Yeah.
Compared to Glen Rock?
Yeah.
Well, the old phonograph had like 78, 33 and 45. We're like 33 compared to the 78 at Glen Rock. Like if it's a metronome, it'd be like this. So you got to do funny things to get guys deep. Glen Rock, you just like run by that dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's kind of like how we were at Butler. Those early teams were fast, right? Like those early teams were 4x1. But by the time it got to me, it was like,
I think a big part of it too is you don't take credit for this, but your involvement of track first, right. I think early on, and Paul coached. You guys had this great relationship track-wise. You guys might battle at times where you took, even though he was the head coach of boys, you were head coach of girls. You guys mixed. You were one of the first groups to do that. Coach by specialization, and so even though he was the head coach of track boys, you were the head coach of girls.
Right, you all came together.
In training, he coached specialization. So that allowed him to develop these. And you correct me if I'm wrong. The track guys, and I think that by the time you became an offense coordinator, that was already in place. That was kind of a known thing that track was a thing at Glen Rock. And track at Glen Rock always kind of had history because even when I first got there as in high school, they did have a decent track teams. But you really took it and coordinated with football in a way that was unique. And correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't been as easy at Riverdale, even though you have great track. You had some great track coaches there, but it's not the same when you're not the man. Like you were the man in track at Glen Rock.
Well, I think all the specialization now in the sports is taking kids away that should be doing different things.
Correct.
Derek finds it funny when Dave and I were first starting at Riverdale, we would have I've always been an AM guy, and we'd have like an 11 o'clock thing for the younger kids, like the freshmen. We knew we were in trouble about the second day when the incoming freshmen, was about 40 of them. That was the 2007 team when they were freshmen, which would go undefeated and only give up 28 points. We kind of rolled the ball out with that team and say, just sick them. All right. Yep. But we would throw the ball to the varsity kids. And I'm telling you, the kids wouldn't even get their hands up. Kids were getting their faces split open. Not all the kids, but plenty of them.
Enough to note it.
Yeah, like we are from that point. Well, we're now always helmets every day in the summer, starting in June. And kids are like, oh, it's great, you're protecting our kids from concussions. Not really, not really. It's a therapeutic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, it's for my sanity, please. Like,
yeah.
And it's also because I don't want to see your kid have to take his senior photos with no teeth. So,
well, actually, the truth is, I just don't want to stop practice.
Right.
Right.
It's becoming a hassle. But yeah, I think that's become an issue. You got, the stopwatch and the tape measure have never changed. They've never changed, but you have so much specialization now that it's become a harder sell. And we probably made the football job in the morning shoot. I coached indoor this year.
Oh, you did?
With coach. Yeah. It was a 1-year thing. I mean, I'm not looking to do that much more, but we have some.
That's tough. Indoor is always so tough.
Well, the meets are so long, and it's but hey, you're all in on it, and he'll be fine in the spring. He's got so many talented kids, and he's a great coach. But the thing at Glenrock was, Paul really took a lot of the distance kids and the javelin throwers, and I would take all the jumpers and the sprinters and kids almost up to the half and the hurdlers. So that was kind of something I would do. So I had the boys and girls, and remember that, David, this, your dad will tell you this. The girls teams were far better than the boys teams. As good as the boys teams were that. Our girls teams were insane in soccer and in track.
Oh, unbelievable.
I mean, listen, I was at Mount Olive for 4 years, like great track, right? It was the girls were it's dominant no matter what.
Our girls were ridiculous. So.
No matter how much of a lead we had in the mile relay, Minio would catch him in the league. I remember this in the league championships because it was one of the first times I had to yell at my father because I'm coaching and I'm like, we finally have a big enough lead. And I mean, I'm not kidding. Track Derek, we ran that year 4:07. Okay, which was good for Group 1, but they were better, much better. But they you guys probably ran low 4s or maybe even broke it. Yeah. But we had that lead, and I want to say we had a 50-meter lead. It was, I mean, usually, and maybe more. Almost, it's one of those leads that you're like, okay, yeah, unless this kid completely falls apart, we're winning this. Well, Minio comes around on the comes to the last curve, and at the midpoint of the last curve, catches, I don't remember who her anchor leg was, but catches her and goes by her. And she catches her and goes by her. And there was no catching Minio when she went by it. It wasn't like she was coming back. She was gone. Yeah. My father took his clipboard, which had papers all on it and everything, and fired it, onto the track. Fires it on track. I said, what the heck are you doing? Now, the girl from Warwick, who was another 20 yards behind, had to run around
the papers.
I said, what are you nuts? He turns to his manager, he goes, go pick that up. And she gathers the papers on the track. Girls.
Yeah. Again, we talk about this as about football, but you've had some kids that are pretty special. You get to be around in your career. Kim Minio, I mean, she won the state meet of champions 3 times in the 800 meters. I mean, was a scholarship soccer player at Rutgers, and she was 5'3". She was, obviously she's a mom now, married, and having a wonderful life. And I tell people, if you ever saw the movie Seabiscuit or read the book,
yeah,
and people say, well, how fast did she run? So how fast you want to run?
Yeah.
She's going to run that much faster than you. I mean, the stopwatch meant nothing.
The twins, I remember her versus the twins from Red Bank.
The Trotter girls, yeah.
The Trotters, and they were like this tall, 5 foot, I don't know, like 5'8". Like they look like, you see the college girl distance runners, right? Like lean. And Minio, she was lean. She was in great shape, but you're exactly right. She was 5'3". She was built like a soccer player. And I'm telling you, she pounded those girls into submission. I mean,
she'd leave them at the finish line, laying the ground. Those girls both ran at Stanford. There was a girl from Southern, Lauren Lewis, who ran at Michigan. And she just beat those kids up. It was, sometimes it was like after a race, you felt like calling Dyfus. I mean, she and I still think she was a better intermediate hurdler. She ran 60-point intermediates, and I never let her really go. And the state meet of champions. I always wondered, if I really let her do this, I wonder if she could break 60. But Kim loves soccer, but that's the competitive nature we had there. But I know we really want to move this back towards
sure.
And I think really maybe it's easier to go to what we're seeing now and where that came from.